viewers, welcome back to Street Sociology. Now today we're going to be discussing the ever-present problem of Covid-19, but we're not going to look at it from a medical perspective. Now, not least of all because I have no idea about anything medical whatsoever, but there's plenty of very, very smart people working on all that right now. So I'm not here to talk to you about the medical aspects of Covid-19. Okay, I'm here to talk about the social aspects. Now, to start this off, I think that we're all on the same page now when it comes to this virus. It is very real, it is very serious, it's a problem for about 6 months. We'll get to that. But the first thing I want to talk about is perspective, okay? And that is kind of to do with all these people panic buying and carrying on, but more so as a general state of mind. In Australia, as with the Western world, we've had it very, very good for a very long time. And for people that haven't really seen that much else of the world, it can be very difficult to rationalise. See, we have this exceedingly high standard of living in Australia and the West, and now it might get dropped to here. So we see the small loss of our standard of living for 6 months. We'll still have a great standard of living, comparable with probably more than 80% of the planet who lives this every day. So let's get a bit of perspective, all right? The not being allowed to go out much for 6 months, okay? Having to be rational at the supermarket and watch a bunch of Netflix. Come on, guys. Perspective. It's not that bad. It's not good, but it's really not that bad. So let's just chill, all right? Let's go. Things aren't great, but they're still pretty goddamn good, okay? So, bit of perspective on that. Now, there's a couple of things that sort of give me more of a positive bent to this COVID business. One of those is a number of antiviral drugs that have had some efficacy treating patients. I'm not a medical person. I'm not suggesting we can use those particular treatments necessarily. But the fact that there are some that have some efficacy is a positive. It means that the likelihood of there being perhaps not a cure soon, but a remediation for the severity of the illness within the next 6 months, I think is probably quite likely. Okay, that gives me hope. Okay? So I went through this phase in early February when I came to be fully aware of what all this means, and it was a tough few days, and I sort of worked through it in my mind and came up with some silver linings, you could say. And I dealt with the impacts of this virus. So about a month and a half ago. It was hard, but now it's quite fine. Some people will be struggling with a similar mindset to what I had a month and a half ago. So, solutions. You've got to look at silver linings. Things don't happen in isolation. Things are all part of a much broader scheme of things. Now, let's start with climate change. This business, this lockdown, whatever, it's probably going to last about 6 months. Now, the likelihood we won't have a vaccine until about 1.5 years from now is pretty high, but I think we'll have remediations in the meantime. Okay, so let's say 6 months. Well, it sounds hard, but in a broader sense, it can be a good thing. I mean, most of you have probably already seen images of the air pollution ratings over China and even parts of the northern United States and northern Italy that have massively reduced the amount of pollution they're putting out. Massively, quite quickly, and stayed that way. Now, we haven't had this opportunity in the world to see what a world without constant pollution looks like for quite a lot more than 100 years. And all of a sudden, now we do. We see what water looks like when it runs clear, when the atmosphere isn't full of quite as much of, pollutants and long-chain hydrocarbons and the like. I'm hoping, as we all should, that the mixture of the sudden stop of pollution production, even for only 6 months, and us all being able to see the benefits from that, not only could that create a greater motivation to act on climate change, because that is still the biggest problem facing the world. This is not. This is a 6-month hiccup. Climate change is a very permanent problem. So perhaps this few months of seeing things nice and clear might spur people to action. The other thing is, say we've had 6 months around the world, or it will be 6 months by the end of it, of massively reduced emissions and pollution. it is a silver lining, a potential one, but perhaps due to this extra 6 months of not polluting, we might actually have an extra 6 months to take action on climate change later on before the tipping point. So this temporary pause on global, massive pollution production, I think it has several positives. And again, it makes it a very hard 6 months for me and for you. But for the world, there could be much longer term benefits from this. Now, to the fun stuff, politics. I'm going to get technical for a second. So, yeah. Neoliberal capitalism is the form of economic system under which most of the Western world operates. Okay, now I haven't got a necessarily huge beef with the concept of capitalism, but neoliberal capitalism, which is the current system, this profit above all and everything else, no matter what, it's unsustainable. It's been causing a lot of harm around the world in the last 60 years, and I can truly hope that this will be the finish of it. Now again, I'm not saying capitalism. I want to maintain a capitalist model. Okay, people make their money, fine, that's cool. I've got no beef with that. What beef I got with is, I won't get into it too much, but yeah, the whole massive corporations pay no tax, trickle down economics, yada, yada, yada. It's all garbage. It is literally, factually wrong. It doesn't work. Okay, it works for a couple of people up here, but everyone else gets crapped on. Now, as a society, both countries and in the wider West, we've just copped it. We've just bent over and gone, yeah, okay, you want to stand on top of us? Okay, fine. Have a go at it. Come on then. No! We should be fighting this crap. And you know what? I think this might just be the perfect opportunity for all of us to see not only the wrongs of the past, but a potential future. You might notice the government has had no, in Australia specifically, has had no choice but to offer up many tens of billions in economic stimulus due to this virus. Obviously that's not going to be enough. We're going to be looking at probably within 6 months, I would imagine the Australian federal government will have to spend somewhere, including the RBA, between $750 billion and $1 trillion to stimulate the economy. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. Let's do it. But for a lot of people, like Scott Morrison, the Australian Prime Minister, for example, who is a true neoliberal capitalist, this is kryptonite to him. He's horrified by the idea of having to use the wealth accrued by the corporations and the 1% to actually help the citizens of the country. That's us. They should be helping the citizens of the country all the time. Now, because the free market has not, in fact, come to the rescue, quite the opposite, massive unemployment. Australia lost about 1 million jobs on Monday. And on the balance of things, I should imagine before next Monday, it's going to be about 2.5 million. That's unsustainable. We're looking at an unemployment rate somewhere between 15 and 20%. It's 5.1 last quarter, if you were wondering. So the fact is, we'll survive, the economy will survive, but we're going to have to make changes. And I can only hope that we make changes in a more holistic fashion, that this necessitation of help gives us clarity that that option is there, that the state should, to some extent, help its people a hell of a lot more than it has been. This is laid bare in a way it hasn't been, well, I don't think it's ever been laid bare like this as a group since the beginning of neoliberal capitalism in sort of the 60s, 70s. Now, all of us, you, me, them, we can all see that it's a load of crap. Okay? So let's hope that because the neoliberal capitalist economic model requires constant growth, which it is not going to receive for the next 6 months, this could behoove us a good opportunity to transition to a more fair and equitable model. Yeah. So that's another positive. Now, these are some of the things that I use to help myself in the difficult times in February. So hopefully they can help you too. But overall, I'll put it like this. This is 6 months where our incredible standard of living in the West, at worst case scenario, is going to be comparable to everybody else on Earth, including all those people. Will it still be better than the people that make your Nike t-shirts and your Adidas friggin' shoes? It'll still be better than their lives, so what are we whinging about? Keep it together. Like, as mentally and as a group, we'll be right. It's 6 months, lockdown, and a chance for the future to be a better one. Okay, so let's not panic buy. Australia is in a very strong food security position. There's no need to panic buy. The only reason we have any empty shelves at all is because everyone buys everything that we have at once, even though we have enough food in Australia for about double our population. Chill on the panic buying. look after your people, stay inside, let's stay together, we'll get through it. It's only 6 months and a brighter world awaits. Street sociology.